Shake it, jump. I'll be there for sure. Don't worry. I'll miss that bam, 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 bam. It's not an easy road. How many see the glamour and the glitter, so they think I better roads. We say, who feels it knows? Ooh, Lord, every sun say these blows. I cry, it's not an easy road. How many see the glamour and the glitter, so they think I better roads. We say, who feels it knows? Ooh, Lord, every sun stayed. Why? From the minute of birth you enter this world, obstacle in your way to overcome first. Throughout every day they seem to get worse. Oh my God, cast away this curse. Everybody are trying to make every end meet you anyway that them head never that God you see. No matter what the world may say out the street, must have to survive, won't accept defeat. Now I'm weary, dying dreaming. God no time to raise your bed alone. It's not an easy road. How many see the glamour and the glitter, so them think I better roads. We say, who feels it knows? Ooh, Lord, every Sunday these blows. I cry, it's not an easy road. How many see the glamour and the glitter, so them think I better roads. We say, who feels it knows? Ooh, Lord, every Sunday these blows. Why your eyes to see the sun? Who you love, who you love? Try into this bed if the works you have done. Some not satisfied with the pose of a life from the stripes and forests.
Yeah, we get to set for what I want.
All of the head dancing on both sides. How we can disappear, pray for your life. Righteousness prevail. It's down by my side. Lead my shoulder from the way. You're living to die. Help us all. Have Abba Janai. Hold up my head and cry. I tell you now, it's not an easy road. Oh no, it's not an easy road. I did tell you, it's not an easy road.
Greetings, Clarence. Greetings, brother.
It's not an easy road. Why? I've been traveling morning with such a heavy load. Don't waste no night. That's not afford to put down my burden alongside the road.
Hey, what's up, Mr. Banter? Greetings.
Yeah, I've got to humble myself like a child. Up on my face, I've got to put up a smile. I wake up my mind just to have more mile. Oh God, I've got to, because I know that it's not an easy road. How many see the glamour and the glitter, so they think I better roads. They say, who feels it knows? Ooh, Lord, every song stay these blows. It's not an easy road. How many see the glamour and the glitter, so they think I better roads. They say, who feels it knows? Ooh, Lord, every song stay. Why from the minute of birth you enter this world, obstacle in your way to overcome first. Throughout every day they seem to get worse. Oh my God, cast away this curse. Everybody are trying to make every end meet you better than you.
All right, there. I'm going to pause the bujo. Greetings. Welcome to another episode of Watagwan. My name is Donovan Simon. I'm the president for the Jamaican Canadian Association, Alberta, based here in warm Calgary. And Watagwan is our way of connecting to the community, talking about things that we're doing in our association, things that are happening in our city, things that are happening in our country, things that are happening in Jamaica, things that are happening in the world. And for July, we've been talking about stories, sharing the stories of others. And today we have a really interesting one. We have a great guy out of Jamaica to come talk to us about Beyond the Walls of the Ghetto. And I'm really excited to have that conversation. So, but hold tight, because we have to do some staples of Watagwan before we get into that, right? And one of the staples of Watagwan is the Patwa word of the day. Now, for those who have been watching this program, you know that when we say the word, it could be two words, but it's one word. That is just the way Patwa is, right? And this is an interesting one because last week the Patwa word was tanso. And I was thinking about it and I was saying, okay, it's amazing how Patwa is great because the Patwa word today is tande. And if you were in Jamaica and we were using it in a sentence, somebody would possibly say something to you like, you can tande, or tande, no? So those who understand Patwa, please help those who don't by putting in the comment section what we mean when we say tande, right? Patwa word of the day is tande. We have to talk about things that are coming up. And let's see, we're going to have our general meeting on the 30th of July, last Saturday of the month, last Saturday of July. We have 5 Saturdays in July this year. And believe it or not, we're going to start off by having a meeting, a general meeting in our new building. That's the plan at this point. Still have a few details to work through, but we're also going to broadcast it on Zoom. So the Zoom information will be in our weekly newsletter, on our website, on our social media. And we'll provide a little bit more information as it relates to meeting at the JCAA building, which would be a first. We also want to share that there's another webinar by Getting Your Affairs in Order. It's going to be on the 28th of July. It's a free webinar. You can register to get some really important information about preparing for the inevitable and how to save yourself. Well, maybe not yourself if you're the one passing along, but save your family and your loved ones some heartache by learning about some important things that you should be doing. We continue to ask for your support for our building program, right, through the Helping Hands program. We have started populating our donor wall, as you can see on screen. There are a number of different categories that you can support us in. And we're also going to be starting recognizing our donors in the next little bit. So if you have not yet donated to the Helping Hands program, consider doing it as you help us to sustain this building project and a space that supports the community. A big thing, and I keep talking about this one, big thing, is our library. We have a resource room and library that we are populating. We want to build the single largest collection of books by Jamaican and Afro-Caribbean authors in Canada. Yes, I said it, and I've been saying it for a while. The single largest collection of books by Jamaican and Afro-Caribbean authors in a space owned by the JCAA that people can come and read. Adult books, children books. We're already collecting quite a few, but we want to collect more. We want thousands of books to be in this space, right? So that it can be a wealth of knowledge for the community. So please consider supporting this project. I've been talking about it for a while. We keep getting books, but we need lots more. And I know it's a big ambition, but nothing wrong with big ambition. True? Okay, so please, let's support this one. To get in touch with the association, there are a number of different ways. You can jump on our website, you can send us an email, you can make a phone call, and you can find us on social media. There are a number of ways to get in touch with us, to share information, to make a request, to donate some books, to hear about the Helping Hands program, and who knows, there are so many different things that we do as part of the community. I want to pause a little bit and say thanks to everybody who supported us last weekend through our Liquor Taste benefit and through the 2021 Cultural Showcase. A big shout out to the planning team, a big shout out to all our volunteers, a big shout out to all our sponsors and donors, and to all the artists. Everybody volunteered their time for that showcase, and the reports have been very positive. So we really want to express our deep appreciation for everybody who took the time to support the Liquor Taste benefit and also the Cultural Showcase. Through those initiatives, we'll be able to offer an additional scholarship this year to an international student, and also our backpack program, we can extend the reach. Last year, we supported 75 families. This year, we want to support 120 to 150, right? And of course, we want to ensure that we have some funds in our benevolent fund to support the needs of people in our community. So thanks again to everybody who supported what we were doing there last week. All right, for those who are joining late, and if you didn't get the pata word of the day, it's tande, right? So you can tande, right? The power of our beautiful language, patois. But let's get into the conversation that today is all about. right? Sharing stories. And today we have a guy out of Jamaica, St. Catherine, Jamaica. We get into those details in a little bit. And we're going to talk about Beyond the Walls of the Ghetto, right? He's written a book. We'll hear a little bit about that in a little bit. But let me bring Andre on screen here, and let's start the conversation. Andre, welcome to Wataguan. How are you, brother?
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. I'm good. Yourself?
Yeah, man. All right.
Welcome to Wataguan.
Yeah, but they are Tanso back. Yeah. All right. So maybe let's get into the conversation. You know, what we want to talk about. And let's talk a little about Andre first of all. Who is Andre? Where's Andre from? And I think you told me earlier that you're in Jamaica. So talk a little bit about that too.
Yeah, I'm actually from Spanish Town, you know, big up the Spanish Town peeps in Toronto, in Alberta, all over the place. I grew up with my grandmother in Spanish Town, and yeah, I'm actually in Jamaica at the moment, really enjoying the island. And, you know, like I moved to Toronto in 2011. I actually was in Alberta, as I was saying to you earlier, and I visited the JCA there. That was a pretty cool experience. But in terms of who I am, I'll just describe myself as somebody who is really big on supporting the community, somebody who is an ambassador for the community. And, you know, as we talk later on about Flip and Floss, it actually started with JCA in Toronto, which is something I'm excited to talk about. Yeah.
That's interesting. All right, but let's go back to the roots a little bit. Spanish Town, right?
Yeah.
Here's this little man. What was the formative years like? And because you don't know, I'm from Bagua, so just up the road, right?
Just up the road, yeah. I mean, you know, like, you know, growing up with my grandmother was it was challenging, not so much because of my grandmother, but because of the economic circumstances. You know, like I struggled financially, I struggled emotionally, I struggled as a young, you know, Black youth from the ghetto, trying to understand life and, you know, like what that means, what it means to be a man. Those were all struggles that I had growing up. My grandmother, she taught me and my siblings invaluable lessons about community, in terms of, you know, career and things like that. And those were lessons that guided me onto the right path. And, you know, going to Eltham High School, you know, was disappointing at the moment because, you know, in Jamaica, it's all about going to a traditional high school. And I wanted to go to like a Campion or a KC and then place there, but...
No, man, Calabar, Virginia.
Calabar. Calabar and, you know, all of them big schools, but I never made it there, and very disappointed. And, you know, for me, I made the best of Eltham High School. You know, I participated, I joined cadet, and, you know, here I am now.
Yeah. When you were growing up, and, you know, you talk about the influence of grandparents, and people who are from Jamaican culture will understand how the extended family plays a really big role in how we grow up. What was your dream?
I always wanted to be a pilot. That's something, and I spoke about this in my book. Like I like watch the planes going by in admiration, and, you know, the sound and everything. And, you know, I mean, at that point, I couldn't even afford going on an airplane, much less to go to flight school. So, I mean, that dream quickly got crushed, and I had to shift my focus to something else. But that's something that I really wanted to achieve as a boy growing up.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the book, Living Purposefully Beyond the Walls of the Ghetto. And even before we get into the content of the book, let's define the concept of ghetto and why you look at it in your book like that.
Yeah. So for me, in the ghetto is it's literally a construct. It's a societal construct. It's something that I wanted to redefine because, you know, a lot of times when people think about ghetto, they don't feel like any good thing can come from the ghetto, right? And so I wanted, part of the reason why I underscored that in my title is because I want to say, hey, it doesn't matter where you are from, or if you believe that you're from a ghetto in the sense of how people perceive it to be, you can still achieve greatness. And so that's why I wanted to underscore that, because a big part of writing this book is that I wanted to inspire youth from the ghetto in Jamaica and elsewhere, right? That's obviously because of, like I said, all society perceive ghetto that nothing good comes from the ghetto. In Jamaica, it's more this perception of this as zinc fence, and you have all of these things happening in the ghetto. Well, I mean, that wasn't necessarily my case, so to speak, in terms of a zinc fence or anything like that. But there were struggles that were present and more evident in certain communities that people characterize as ghetto.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe before we get into some of the other things that inspired the book, was the mentality that, and I think it still exists, that you come from Eltham, or you come from Dela, or you come from, I don't know, jungle, that there's only so much you can achieve and no more, right? I don't know if you saw a little video that was going viral recently. A little youth, him about maybe 6 years old, so boy, his goal is to become a gunman.
Gunman, yeah, I saw that.
And is that some of the mentality out of the ghetto, right? And how did that then influence some of the thinking that that went into this book?
Yeah. I mean, to some extent it is not for everyone, but like even going back to when I visited my high school a few years ago, that's in Spanish Town. And when I was talking to some of the guys there, first off, they didn't believe me that I went to Eltham High School, because in their mind, nothing good comes from Eltham High School.
Right.
And so there is this misconception, even among the youths themselves in the ghetto, that there's no better, that they, like the system is against them, society is against them. And I mean, rightfully so, I can understand their frustration, because that's how it feels when you're in it. But, hearing that little youth echo those words, it's just the reality for a whole heap of youth in the ghetto, right? And so that is why it's important for people like myself and others who've made it out, who've gone beyond the walls of that belief, that system that we characterize as ghetto, to say, hey, there's more that you can achieve. There's greatness out there. Because when you look at it, even for me, when I was at St. John's Road, where I grew up, I didn't go anywhere beyond my community. And that's for a lot of youth. But if you actually go out there and see that there's more to the world and there's more opportunity, then I feel like more youth will strive to achieve further greatness.
Right. All right. So let's go into the book, Andre. When and what was behind the decision to put this book together?
I mean, there was a lot of factors. A big part of it, as you will see in the book, I talk a lot about my grandmother. I feel like she's in every chapter. Right. So my grandmother was my strength and my inspiration. And, when she died, it really took a lot out of me to really get back on track. And part of me writing this book was to honor her legacy. And so from that point forward, like when she passed, I knew that I wanted to tell my story because I feel like my story would be able to inspire people. But I had my reservations. It wasn't until I actually went to California in 2019 and I met Kenya Barris, and he talked about the power in telling his story. And he spoke about how he struggled to even produce Blackish because he was so afraid of telling his story. Right. And so that again inspired me. So it was a collection of things, but I feel like the last push was listening to Kenya Barris, another young Black person who had similar struggles. And I said, you know what, I need to tell my story because I feel like it would inspire somebody just the same.
Right. And through that inspiration and through that process, I'm sure there are tons of lessons. And I soon come to the business side and achievement. The other day on one of your social media, I see you pointing to a place in Jamaica, but I soon come to that. But talk about some of the lessons that you learned as you went through this process of delivering Living Purposefully.
So I spoke about some of these in my book. So I think the biggest one for me was embracing failure. And one of the things that I recognize in the Jamaican culture is that we all want to be right. And so there's this innate feeling that, you cannot answer something, you cannot move forward unless you have the right answer and you have everything right. But I recognize that, in order to grow, like there's that process of making mistakes and moving beyond that. So that's one of the biggest lessons I'd say I learned. But the other lesson is community, right? The value in giving back. And like, the JCA, I volunteer at the JCA in Toronto. And so that was really big for me, the ability to inspire the people to give back what I have learned. So I learned the value of community. That's something I learned coming to Canada, right? Because I realized it was something that's talked about all the time. And the third lesson is the power of friendship, and something I spoke about in my book as well. I had some really good friends who supported me along the way. And then the last one I wanted to highlight is knowledge, right? Knowledge is key. And so a lot of times when we think about knowledge, people tend to think it's just limited to going to school, but it's also your experiences. It's reading beyond the classroom. It's listening to other people. It's learning many different things. And so those were some of the biggest lessons that I feel like shaped me into the person that I am, and helped to give me the understanding to be able to produce this book, which I've gotten great reviews on it.
and you said the person that you are. So what are some of the experiences and some of the things that have possibly changed from the point when you say, you know what, I'm gonna chronicle my story to where you are today, and we can use that to drift into Flip and Floss?
Yeah, of course. The biggest one, I mean, it's gonna obviously like surprise people, but the biggest one was when my closest friend in Toronto got murdered. And that was a devastating experience for me. I felt prior to that I had my entire life together and things was progressing well, but it wasn't until he was out of the picture that I realized that my life, as I feel like it was going well, wasn't going so well. And my journey toward Flip and Floss and to everything that I'm doing now really started in 2016 after he died, because I was moved to start a program called Second Chance, because I felt like he is someone that deserved a second chance. Not that he did anything wrong, but I felt like he deserved to live, and that's something that I wanted to bring about for other Black youth in Toronto. And I said, you know what? I need to do something meaningful. I need to bring about some kind of change within my community, because I'm tired of seeing, young Black men being destroyed by the system. And so that's really how it started for me, and that led to everything else, into volunteering at the JCA in 2017 to over into Flip and Floss and pretty much everything else.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about you, the businessman, right? Where did that start? Let's talk a little bit about what Flip and Floss offers.
All right. So you want to start with how we become the businessman, or you jump into
because I think that is part of the journey. If somebody in Eltham were to look on at this like you growing up when you were 10 and 12 years old, they possibly could not have imagined Andre Smith today. But chances are Andre Smith could not have imagined Andre Smith today.
Oh, definitely not. I will start with me. I couldn't imagine. The Andre Smith today is far from what I believe I would become, to be honest. But business was something I grew up around, even though it wasn't on a large scale. My grandmother had a shop, so we call it convenience store, but people at Toronto attack me. No, Jamaican name convenience store.
We have a shop too, and convenience
store. So right, convenience store, so that the people in Toronto
so people trust. Maybe it's a different thing.
Exactly. But it started there with my grandmother, and I saw how hard she worked, and I saw how she treated people. I firsthand learned about business from her. My very first business, what you can call it a scam too, but it was in primary school. I them sell the balloon.
Yeah.
And you pick out the 31, kind of want nobody win the big balloon and the chance. So I learned early how to take out the 31 from the balloon and make sure all the balloons get sell off, then they sell the 31 for more. From there, I started selling phone cards. I started selling candies, and I just had my whole little side thing going on from that very early.
Yeah.
And so that's where I started.
Yeah, but isn't that part of the hustling? And, when we talk about beyond the walls of the ghetto, I think it's also important for people to understand the subculture of hustling and survival.
Precisely.
So there are skills that come with that circumstance.
Right.
That possibly you tap into today.
Exactly. And, that's, coming over into Flip and Floss, like, I learned all of that survival technique, that technique of like sales and dealing with people from my grandmother. But Flip and Floss for me is it's a brain product. It's a child. It's something that I truly value, because one of the biggest inspiration for me in starting Flip and Floss is that I felt like if I needed to truly end racism and economic inequality, I needed to empower and inspire my own people. And I felt like financial literacy is one of those areas where I had the strength and the background and the experience. And I feel like through financial literacy, I could bring about meaningful change. So that's what really inspired me to start talking about financial literacy. And so for those who want to know what Flip and Floss is, so I actually took concepts that were familiar to the community. So the whole idea of flipping and then you go floss with your bridging them. So that historically had like a negative connotation, because when you talk about flossing, you talk about wasting your money and buying expensive things and whatever. But I've redefined that. So FLIP is actually for an acronym for Financial Literacy and Investor Program, and FLOSS is for Future Leaders Obtaining Sufficient Skills. So we've looked at everything historically and all the different conversations that we've had around money within our culture. And I find different ways to inspire and to start conversations in a fun and meaningful way. So for example, one of the things that, I extended the conversation around within our community is the whole notion of savings, right? So for example, you grow up, your parents tell you, make sure you're saving, make sure you're saving. Saving is good. But we've extended the conversation to say to people, if you are saving, make sure that you're also investing, because when you invest, you earn a rate that's higher than inflation. Because if you're earning at a rate below inflation, even though you're developing the good habits of saving, you're not making money. And so this is what we bring to the people in a very easy to understand way. And, honestly, that has brought its own success. It wasn't about the success for me. It was really volunteering and helping people to make better decisions.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm glad we talk about that, because when we think about the title of the book, Living Purposefully, there is still the cycle that we go through. And you're in Jamaica now, where a large proportion of the people who are, I'm going to say, in the lower class don't necessarily see a way out. Right? As far as they're concerned, this is how my parents live, this is how my grandparents live, and there's not much hope for me. How do we get that narrative changed, and what are some of the things that you see as necessary as part of that solution?
Yeah, that's a good point. And, I've been here and I've been observing through this new lens that I have. And, I literally spoke about this recently about the class divide in Jamaica and how I feel like it's growing. But it goes back again, literacy and financial literacy again is one of those areas. I was in courts with a friend of mine, and it just brought me back to that time of like how people are so passionate about something as simple as hire purchase. And I look at the hire purchase system not only through courts but through other large suppliers in Jamaica, and it's just literally one of those systems that takes a lot from the poor or from the lower income people. Right? So that knowledge is really powerful around money. How do you manage money? How do you, when you earn money, what do you do with it? How do you leverage that to build wealth for your community, right? And the whole idea of community economics, helping people within those communities to understand that if you destroy this community, you are taking away from yourself, you're taking away from your people. So there has to be honest conversations around what is happening in this community. But I feel like there needs to be a concerted effort, by government and other stakeholders to develop financial literacy among people around investing. I remember as a boy, when I usually look at the stock channel and CVM and them station there, and they say, one stock advance, one decline. I used to love seeing the arrows and whatever, but I never knew what any of that meant.
Right.
Right. So I feel like that's something I'm really passionate about. I've started some early work in terms of like how I can get involved more in financial literacy in Jamaica, but it's something that it's so critical, that we don't have collective economics. We don't have the skills in our community that, okay, if I start a shop, how do I scale from just a shop to a franchise, to a wholesale,
Right.
to all these things that can further develop the community.
Yeah, and is that just a function of culture, or is it a function of the system as we keep talking about,
Yeah.
right? Which one is it?
I think it's both. So the system, obviously makes it harder. System looks at macro and micro factors, economic
Mhm.
factors. So from that perspective, I feel like the system is failing the people because when you look at something like minimum wage, I can't even think about business at that minimum wage level. So right, so there
Yeah,
are economic and systemic barriers that makes it harder for people to progress. But there are cultural things as well. For example, like somebody say, "Yo, I'm gonna start a shop," or I'm gonna buy two things and whatever. I'm gonna just put up a stall.
yeah,
I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's a good part of our culture. But how do we, relearn, unlearn, and grow beyond that? After that, I've worked with some workmen in Jamaica, for example, and I'm big on helping my people and helping lower income. But it's like I honestly, one of the situations I was in was literally a doorknob that was more of a modern type of doorknob.
yeah,
And the guy was literally of the view that the doorknob is broken.
yeah,
So again, that system, like how do we get people to keep learning and keeping up with technology,
yeah,
right? So there's that knowledge gap that exists that we need to fill. So there's that cultural piece where, okay, I learned this and that's it, me good. How do so we need to address that cultural piece. So I would say it's a bit of both, to be honest.
yeah. There's a ton of learning to do, because if we don't, and you talk about the house. A few years ago, my parents' house burnt down in Jamaica, and we had to rebuild the house. And I tell you, it was an interesting experience working with the trades there. And for those of us who have become exposed to a more developed system, a little bit more systematic fluidity, it's amazing the struggle, and you wonder how people manage through that, right? Let's talk a little bit about what you want people to get from living purposely, or living purposefully beyond the walls of the ghetto. When people read this, what do you want them to take away from it?
So for one, I want people to be inspired. I think that's the biggest part of my book, for people to be inspired. I want people to understand that it doesn't matter what you're going through. You don't have to be in the ghetto. It doesn't matter where you're from or what's going on in your life. That you are bigger than your present circumstances. That's one of the lines you'll hear from me a lot of the times, is that you can overcome, right? And I've shared in my book some personal experiences. I've shared some lessons. I've shared some tools that I've developed over the years to help me through my journey. And those are tools that I hopefully other people will use to get through difficult times. Another key message that I want people to understand is that disappointment in any shape or form is a moment in time, but life is a journey. Life goes on. I want people to understand that in order to overcome certain challenges, the things that you need to consider: mental health, a good support system, all of these things. And I've shared so many stories, so many things that I've been through. They were good, they were bad, and they were just like amazing moments. But at the end of the day, we all go through different things in life. But it's really helpful when you can look at somebody else's story and say, hey, like this person did it, so I can do it too. And
Mhm.
especially for young Black men in Jamaica, in Toronto, in Alberta, everywhere in the world, I want to inspire young Black men in particular. I want young Black men to understand that, as a community, we can grow, we can inspire each other, right? To understand that there's more than what society is defining for us. I've talked about incidences of racism in my book, how I've
Mhm.
overcame that. I've talked about, my absent father, how I've overcome that, and to reverse certain, trends or generational curse, as some people will call it.
Right,
Right.
right.
So all of these things are things that I talk about to inspire others to know that there's greatness within them.
Yeah, and maybe let's dive into that just a little bit before we kind of get to wrap up, because there is this perception that the ghetto makes you into X, right? And because you are from X, and we can go down the list as we look through it, then there's an automatic or a predetermined path, right? Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that message is so wrong, isn't it?
It is very wrong. And, interestingly, I had a conversation with this young man the other day, and he said to me, "Oh, like, I'm sorry, I didn't present myself well. I need to cut my hair or whatnot." So I said, "Who said you didn't present yourself well? Why you need to cut your hair? Like, that's a part of who you are. That's your hair, right?" So I feel like there's this misconception that we tend to run with a lot of them, and people tend to stereotype the ghetto and to make it seem that everybody from the ghetto is terrible, and that ghetto, people who are fatherless is because they grew up in the ghetto. These are issues that affect everybody,
Right.
right? Not just from the ghetto. Like, I've seen amazing fathers, I've seen amazing mothers in the ghetto, right? And so this is why it was so important for me to tell my story, right? So that people can recognize that, there's greatness in every situation. So I want people to understand that it doesn't matter which ghetto or garrison, whatever they want to call it, or which community you're from. Don't listen to the naysayers, right? Just believe, just keep your focus, know that better will come. And this is the other thing I want to say to people in whatever circumstance. Don't just say better must come, because we have a tendency to say, "Yo, better must come." We say it, but our action need to demonstrate that better must come. So saying it is one, but you actually have to work toward it, right?
Yeah, last week we had Stacey Ann Smith on the show, and she was talking about faith, but faith without works,
Yeah,
right?
right.
is dead, because she was speaking about the value of her faith and how it helped her along. But she's saying, you can sit back and pray all you want. If you do
Right.
nothing, where do you get to, right?
Exactly.
All right, let's talk a little bit about where people can get the book and read the details and support what Andre is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I'll say, if you're on Instagram or Facebook or anywhere, follow us, Flip and Floss, right? You can also go to our website for the book. It's at flipandfloss.com. So FLIPANDFLOSS.com, flipandfloss.com. It's under the store. You can order it through the store there, or you can go to Amazon. You can simply search Living Purposefully Beyond the Walls of the Ghetto, and you can order it on Amazon. But if you want to get it directly from me, a signed copy, you'd have to buy it through the Flip and Floss website.
All right. So here, people, jump on flipandfloss.com, go on Amazon, search for Andre Smith or search for Living Purposefully, and you definitely find the book. Here you are many years later, Eltham Park High School. And for the Jamaicans watching the show, I went to Calabar, so high school rivalry in Jamaica.
That's why you push out Calabar. So.
Yeah, man. We have to big out the bar thing. You know I go, brother. You know I go. But high school is a big thing, and we're highly competitive, right? But here you are years later, right? Making progress, moving forward. I see you shake the key the other day and say, "Here I am, acquiring some real estate in Jamaica, and moving forward." Where next for Andre Smith?
Like I said, community is really big for me. That's something that my grandmother really instilled in me, and you can definitely see me doing more community work. Actually, I'm going to need the community's help really soon. I cannot name the award that's coming up, but there's one that's coming up soon. I'll make the details available later. But my plan is to do a lot more community work. I started a scholarship back at my high school in Jamaica. That's something that I want to expand even further. So that's something that we're going to continue to do. We're going to continue to grow Flip and Floss. And when I say we, I have an incredible team of people who work around the clock to find innovative ways to make financial literacy accessible to everyone. So that's something that we're going to continue to focus on in Canada, in Jamaica, across the Caribbean. We want to bring financial knowledge to people because, like I said, I believe that's truly how we are going to end the economic injustice. Right? For example, in Canada, if you want to go up become a senator, one of the minimum requirements is that you own a property.
Yeah.
And so we need to create that for our people. And so that's why we've been working with some incredible organizations, JC in Toronto, Black North, where we've got in conversations, other organization, and we'd love to get in touch with JC Alberta. Like I said, I was there. We came in 2012 with the cadets, and we were interviewed there by CBC Alberta. Right?
Okay, cool.
I don't know if you probably weren't there at the time. I'm not sure, but all I remember is that you guys welcome us really nicely with some curry goat that was super delicious.
Yeah, brother. If there's one thing that we guarantee, food in them.
Exactly, right.
Right. There's a question popping in here, and I want to make sure if other people who are watching have questions, feel free to put it in the comments. Do you do talks and seminars in Toronto? And if yes, how can people find that information?
Yes, I do. So again, so the best way is to contact me through flipandfloss.com. You can send an email to me at andre_smith@flipandfloss.com, or just contact me through our website. And, we'll usually provide updates of like any talks that we have coming up, or if you want me to come and do a talk somewhere, that can be arranged.
Yeah. All right, cool. So those watching, if flipandfloss.com, flipandfloss.com.
Everything is about Flip and Floss.
Yeah, and they're I looked at their site, and great people doing some interesting work. The big part of it, like you said, is knowledge. Other books, what's in the works? Are you thinking about another chapter and another round of written content?
Hey, yeah, I've literally been thinking about so one, I've developed some interest in kids book. So I want to do some kids book around financial literacy. That's something that I've thought about. But interestingly, I've thought about developing a series of books about ghetto. And because historically people, when they hear about ghetto, they think negatively. So here's my opportunity as a ghetto youth to say to people, say, yo, I know only bad things come from ghetto as people make it seem, right? And to further inspire other youths, and to, one of the other things I want to do is to share other youth story from the ghetto. So that's something that I've thought about. The good thing is that I have a really talented writer from Jamaica. She's amazing. She's my editor. She really transformed my book. So it makes me super excited about writing more books. So I definitely see more in the work.
Yeah, and here's an idea, and a lot of people might not know. So when you look at some of Jamaica's heroes and Jamaica's ambassadors out there, they are from many other places that we consider ghetto.
Right.
Shelley and Fraser Price, originally out of Waterhouse, King of Reggae, Bob Marley is a Trenchtown man. We can go down the list and speak to the products of these social constructs that we call ghetto, and how great some of these people have become, right? Despite these circumstances.
Exactly.
Right. So there's a huge story that I think around the concept of the ghetto and what it truly means, right? Absolutely. And one of the things I maybe want to commend you on and all of these folks, because I know Shelley and our Pocket Rocket Foundation does a lot of work in Waterhouse, is not losing the connection and the identity from the ghetto. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I know sometimes people have the tendency to give like a fake.
Yeah, man, them come from Kingston. Like every time you meet somebody, and I say, which part of Jamaica you come from? Oh, I'm from Kingston.
I'm Kingston, yeah.
What country them come from? Or, them come from Half a Tree when really, I don't Slip in Road and, certain place where, boy, I get on a cycle, right? Our country, not true.
That's how it goes, exactly. I mean, your past, I'm a strong believer. Like, I believe in never forgetting where you're coming from. Simple put. And there's a couple sides to that. So there's living purposefully through my past, which I talk about in my book. But also the other side is, for me, it's a big part of it is, how can I help another person to come forward just the same?
Yeah.
And so that's why, even though I'm not reach the level yet, they still have a scholarship program that, like the last 2 people got it is this girl and a guy from my high school. And honestly, I was so moved, when I hear their story and how grateful they were,
right,
for the scholarship. And so I mean, as Jamaicans would have said, every mickle make a muckle.
Yeah, yeah. Right. And beyond the walls of the ghetto, here you are. Right.
Exactly.
All right. Lots of comments. Camila. Who else was it? Nick, Dr. Nick. Yeah, big up all the people who are on the show. Like I said, if you want to touch base with Andre, jump on fliponfloss.com. Andre, conversations like these happen, and of course there's filtration. People don't remember everything, but if there are two things out of all we've talked about and stuff that is in your book that you'd want them to walk away with, the audience to remember, what would those two things be?
Mm-hmm. And I think I saw somebody underscore one of the points that I raised earlier, that there's greatness in every situation. It doesn't matter where you're going through or how, like people, society perceive you. Just believe in yourself all the time, right? And then the other one that I want to underscore is disappointment. And I've said this over and over. Disappoint is one of my most favorite quotes. I don't know if I'm the original author of it, but maybe I would like to think so. But disappointment is a moment in time, but life is a journey. Like when growing up in the ghetto, there are so many times when I got disappointed, where I feel like, this was it, I'm giving up, like I can't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. But like I said, you realize that life is a journey, and you continue to learn, you continue to evolve, you develop strength, you meet incredible people, and then that opportunity or that time comes when you start to reflect and looking back, and you're like, wow, you know what I mean? Yeah. You say water not taste good until you're thirsty.
I tell you,
it's like a situation like that,
Yeah. All right, I tell you, awesome, brother. Andre, I truly appreciate the time you spent on What I Go On with us, brother. All the best with Flip on Floss and all the different initiatives. You know where to find me, because there are a few things that we're doing out here as well to mirror what you're doing, and that way we keep working at it, right? Take care, walk good, and we'll be in touch.
All right, sounds good. That I go on, What I Go On. Everybody big up on yourself. All right.
all right, my brethren. Take it easy.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Awesome discussion, folks, as we keep bringing out stories in What I Go On here in July, because it's really important that we share these stories so we can inspire young people, inspire others all around, right, about what is possible and the potential of their dreams. We're going to do it again next week. Next week, we're going to have CJ Robinson Walia is going to come on, and she's going to talk about unlimited possibilities and why she started that company, what's her journey to where she is today. Another story out of Jamaica that we're sharing here on What I Go On. As always, we want you to share the content. Follow us on our social media handles, just so everybody knows we're now streaming onto both Facebook and YouTube Live, right? So that we can get more people learning from What I Go On, because that's what this is all about. It's nice and bright outside, and I know the stampede and the coronavirus and the Delta variant, all kind of things still happening. But you know what? Let's enjoy life. Let's get out there, have a walk, have a drink, do something, right? Until next week when we do it again, right? I've ended Butch Banton as always, right? Take care, walk good. Dr. Nick.
And that's for all them entertainment. I'll be there for sure. Don't worry. I'll miss them. Bam, 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 bam. It's not an easy road. How many see the glamour and the glitter, so them think I better rose. We say, who feels it knows? Ooh, Lord, help me so say these blows. I cry. It's not an easy road. How many see the glamour and the glitter, so them think I better rose. We say, who feels it knows?